Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and a big one today. As I make this video, patch 7 has just launched, and to our surprise they threw it at us on a Thursday instead of like on a Friday, I guess, as expected. In any case, this means we're ready to jump in to try all the new features like the massive potential of the Larian mod manager that is here. Those who do dabble in modding are going to enjoy this massive quality of life for the modding toolkit that's going to provide to create more for the game. But for us casual players, I think most of us out there, we're now going to be able to enjoy a ton of new content from new classes, races, adjustments to the current classes, the spells, tons of new customization, quality of life, all kinds of stuff is now really ready available using this new in-game mod tool. In many cases, it's literally as often as seeing something, installing it in 2 seconds, and then running it and having fun. But that's not just all for patch 7, as big of a deal as that is. We now have new content added to honor mode, or the evil focus playthroughs getting their own new cinematics and endings. There's a lot to consider and be aware of, so I'm giving you guys a quick rundown and showcase of what you can consider, while also throwing out some helpful reminders to think about going into patch 7 with potential new evil playthroughs. So let's get into it. Starting with this important heads up for console and Mac players. This is the PC release of patch 7, with Mac and console to follow in some time. Before today, we were expecting that to be a good few months at least, certainly based on normal expectations. But to our shock, Larian have also announced today that it's still going to take longer, for patch 7 to come to you guys, but it's coming way sooner than I imagined. It's coming next month, October. That is incredible. Within the month between that, though, they plan to address the issues that are no doubt going to come from patch 7's massive new systems to help the console and Mac launch be much smoother. I think that's brilliant news overall, and I would have never thought it'd only be a month behind, but yeah, great. However, as an important warning to console players, Larian did also tell us that console players will not be able to load cross saves if they come from patch 7 on PC, and multiplayer between PC and Mac will not be possible. Essentially, the point is that they're still working on bringing crossplay to Baldurs Gate 3, they're not ready for it. So with that important caveat addressed, let's now showcase what's new, like the Larian mod manager is now in game. You can access it here from the main menu before you even get into game. Once you've accepted their terms of use and privacy policy, from then on you can get in and start browsing. Now it is obviously early days for the manager, but even still, we're able to see 12 mods per page, scrolling through them how you like. As you can see, you've got a search bar, but to the left of that is a filter button that's very important. It'll open up all these options that you have, with explicit content as an option to turn off or on right at the top. By clicking on the bit above that though, you can start to filter by trending, aka popular right now, or go for the most downloaded, recents, most liked, organized by author, all that kind of stuff. Below that, you can get really specific, like choosing show me only class mods or customization mods, races, subclasses. There's also equipment filters, languages, and more. By finding one you're interested in, you can click on it and learn more about the mod, what it actually does and will add. In this case of the cute little mod Karina Summon, you'll be able to get a special ring that can be used to summon the squirrel. So I just install it and then go load in. As you can see, it gives me a little warning that this mod might cause issues, and to be aware of that, giving me that option to disable it. I'll mention why this is being shown right now in a sec, but basically I do load in, I find the new ring in the traveler's chest and equip it. From here, I can now summon this entirely new fully functional companion that has its own attacks, like vicious mockery as fits the character, but also fun new stuff like play dead, an apparent necromancy cantrip by the way, leaving her resistant to all damages bar psychic for 10 turns. That's the power of acting. So despite the mod warning, it is working perfectly fine. So let's explain that. An important warning for day 1 should be considered. Basically, you should expect many mods to simply not work while they're being updated for patch 7's launch. Many of these, especially the most popular ones, are going to work fine, and we'll reference it in the description as we'll get to. But Larian tells us, like any major patch, some third-party mods may become incompatible after this update. They tell us that it's best to uninstall all your mods and then make sure everything's working fine and go from there fresh. If you face any issues, you can probably point to the last mod you installed and then disable it and work it out. So go slow. I wouldn't recommend installing like 5 to 10 at once, but maybe 1 or 2 or 3, make sure they're compatible in game and go from there. And besides, within the week, I imagine most popular mods are all going to be working very quickly. It's just during these first days that we do need to think about that. Now on the other hand, there's also the creation of mods, or even subtle little changes you might want to make yourself. This will be done using the Larian mod toolkit, which is their system designed to help that process. It's overall been reviewed fantastically by mod testers Larian have been working with in the alphas and betas. Now while I can't claim to know all the details of a modding toolkit, as I am no modder, I've read only good things from the people who are. They do give us a heads up though that the script extender will be required to support compatibility for those of you in the know on that topic. And as another heads up, it isn't actually live as I make this video because it wasn't live at the time the patch went up. They said it'll come up later this same day though, so when it does, to enable it, you'll need to go to the Properties tab of Baldurs Gate 3 and go to the DLC tab. Here you'll find a version called Baldurs Gate 3 Toolkit Data, then you can check that and get it downloaded and installed, and then you can start playing with the toolkit. Larian also made us aware they're going to be posting community updates in the coming days to provide details on using mods and even creating them, as a fantastic introduction to the topic for those of us who are less versed. Alright, so that's modding, and it's going to be a very big deal for the life of the game, but with patch 7 there's other stuff too, like the new evil ending cinematics. Officially, we now know that patch 7 introduces 13 new cinematics that offer varying conclusions to evil playthroughs. Larian does warn us in some case the violence can be extreme in these, so there's a new setting in your accessibility menu, which used to be just show cinematic nudity as an option. Now it is called show sexual and violent cinematics. When this isn't enabled, explicit content and a few select moments of extreme violence will be affected. They call out this feature for creators who maybe want to prevent overly extreme content in their footage. For most people though, it's basically just your heads up that some of these evil cinematics kind of go crazy, and that new setting will reduce the gore as well as sexual stuff. On the bright side, Larian do let us know that it doesn't matter if you're starting a new game or loading an old save, you'll be able to see these new cinematics depending on the choices you make before the endings. That's a wonderful detail. It means you can reload old evil saves and still see the new endings for that playthrough immediately. Also, there's new awesome features for you dark urges. A certain bard has an important role in a Dark Urge playthrough in Act 1, as you probably know. They're making that character a controllable character in camp if there's an empty slot. That's awesome, but again, only temporary. It's very important to be aware that the events during Act 1 during the Dark Urge experience end one way or another inside camp. But the fact that you get to control this character a bit in a little callback to how this character might have been an origin character at one point, yeah, it's just cool to see. Now, outside of evil playthrough stuff, as another topic, Honor Mode has now direct updates and also a lot of subtle ones. The main thing we'll notice will be the new legendary actions, the ones highlighted in the post. We'll draw Rasklin, who, if he finds himself in the spider pit, will try to befriend the spiders to, have them fight you instead of him. Enemies like the bullets in the Underdark, they have a new condition called Diamond Scales and a new legendary action called Shredding Scales. Malice Thorm in Act 2 has a new legendary action called the Grasping Appendage. Spectators have new auras and spells. Various Githyanki in, say, Act 2 during the Githyanki ambush, they get a new legendary action called Soul Sacrifice. Petarius has a new legendary action called Petarian Dogma as well, just as some examples, but that might not be everything. The thing is, it's not just new actions and passives that are being changed for Honor Mode. For example, you can now start custom mode games using Honor Mode mechanics when starting a new playthrough. You just choose via the rule set drop down in that menu now. Basically, Honor Mode mechanics are now relevant to the custom mode, which is just good to have. As I recently highlighted though, split screen improvements have come to the game as well. When playing on a split screen, it gives you these two halves, right? With this new update, they're now going to kind of dynamically merge together when you're close on the same spot. That's going to be much more relevant in tighter areas, mostly combat, right? But sometimes when you're going slow, solving puzzles, exploring, when you're together, not splitting the screen is a lot nicer. But they mentioned that the revamp comes along with different subtle improvements and polishes to make split screen a more functional and enjoyable way to play the game. So really nice for local players. Now, finally, there is a lot, and I mean tons of gameplay improvements, quality of life, and most of all, bug fixes. I am not kidding. Look at this list of changes. It just goes on and on and on. Obviously, I'm not going to be showing all these in a quick showcase video, but it's nice to see so much has been improved. And it's not just bug fixes or super subtle stuff. For example, they've updated the reaction UI, so you only have to toggle reactions you want to use now. That will prevent you having to always press do not react all the time. That's nice. Controller players are getting better stuff like better equipment menu options. You can donate magic items to Hungry Gale from the Traveler's Chest from anywhere now when he asks. Those are the types of updates coming in too. In terms of our fresher playthroughs, there's going to be a lot of dialogue and general scripting improvements. New narrator dialogue at times in the case of Dark Urge, and various origin character improvements too. Will has been a big target for that stuff since he was a rather neglected origin character compared to the rest, but most of them were called out for improved animations and some, cute little idle stuff added too. So overall, brilliant. A lot of it you might not notice and just enjoy, some of it you will just mid-game, but there's a lot to think about. But moving on from the patch showcase itself, let's say you're looking to jump back in for all of this. Maybe you've been away a while or you're late to the party and just jumping in. There's never really been a better time for your first, second, or 80th playthrough. So here's just some quick reminders or things to think about going in relative to patch 7 and the whole evil vibe we have going. So, are you going to go for an evil ending for your playthrough? Maybe it's worth it now to think about who and what might be involved in that. Since there's 13 new evil ending cinematics, there's a lot of ways you can go. So without knowing the details, maybe just think about what kind of ending you may aim for, what playstyle you're going to go for. So on that note, are you going to be playing your own Tav and do one of those? Or are you going to go for an Origin? For a Tav though, I recommend Oathbreaker as a style of playthrough. If you've never played that before, it kind of lines up perfectly with this evil theme. Also, it can be very strong with the right multiclass. Or maybe you are going Origins and you're going to try the Dark Urge. So I'd recommend you ask this beforehand too. Are you going to lean into the urges? Or are you going to go for the super unique style that is resisting them? Both are completely valid, and both should be better in patch 7 specifically. The two will be completely different playthroughs though, so it is a good choice to make ahead of time. And with the particularly evil stuff that's been added in the new cinematics, I would say leaning into the Dark Urges is going to be more notable compared to before. Next then, I want you to think about what kind of modding you're going to try. There's a load of suggestions I could give you, especially for a new playthrough or returning playthrough, but I think you should keep it simple. Here's my advice for that. Go to the mod manager page and then choose filters. For my purposes, I'm going to turn off explicit content for this video, but like I showed earlier, you click here where it says trending and choose one of these. I recommend you choose most downloaded. These are literally the most popular mods right now, and on day one in the first hours, the ones that are going to be most downloaded are generally going to be quality of life stuff that's not going to majorly impact your playthrough. It's not going to add new characters or rebalance things. You'll see here, there's one that gives you adjustable party limits. So instead of having 4, you could have 8 or up to 16 in this case, which is obviously awesome, but will really affect how a playthrough feels and works. So I wouldn't recommend stuff like that for an actual playthrough until you personally want to really do modding. The basics that you're going to be looking for though is obviously quality of life. And a lot of it is based off the most downloaded mod on the actual page, which is Imp UI. You're going to see on the right here lots of dependencies that reference this specific mod. So it's probably a great place to start. It's already an official version for patch 7, prepped before it even launched. To find things of this nature then, I recommend you also select quality of life on the left, and now we're going to see specifically this stuff. So the thing that I recommend first beyond anything is the mod manager minor fixes. I know, there's a mod for the mod manager day 1 of patch 7. Essentially it aims to fix some small bugs, sure, but also improve the UI, which personally, like I said, I think it's early days. I think it could be improved, and I'm sure it will be. But we can take a look at what kind of things they're talking about, like fixing the cut images. Sometimes you look at mods and they just don't load. It's resizing things to be a lot cleaner, be that the font or the images themselves. It just organizes things a little bit better, so I do recommend that outside of the gameplay. But in general, it's going to be stuff like Faerun colors that adds a load of different dice to consider. It's going to be better inventory UI for better reading and organization. This is a great example between vanilla and modding here, where it actually highlights usable items and consumables, or items of particular note with different backgrounds. One that I think's particularly cool is the Origin dialogue tags. This will reveal which character is going to speak the line if you choose it. Sometimes you come across unique dialogue that's meant for a specific character, like we see with Gale and Asterion here, and this just lets you know that they're going to say this line. Some of these are going to be listed though as kind of quality of life, but I think it will impact your gameplay in relevant ways. For example, the Origin feats, which is one of the highest rated quality of life mods available right now, and it gives you a feat when you reach 2nd level in a class instead of the 4 levels per feat on average anyway. That's not necessarily quality of life, that's literally getting something stronger sooner, and so that's something you need to think about whether you want in your game, as it does rebalance a lot of things. Keep that in mind. In any case, take a look for yourself, and I recommend most downloaded mods and having a look at these for your first considerations. You're going to see a ton of really nice customization, things down to the awesome new dice like these Dark Urge themed ones, but that's how I would approach it to begin with and how I would use it, at least for a new playthrough right now. Finally, just a PSA reminder that being evil can be pretty hard in this game. Not because the choices are difficult or tricky per se, but because some of the stuff they have you do is brutal. These characters, often so easy to love, in many ways there's no going back when you go down this route. Various characters are going to love what you're doing, but some, many in fact, are going to be betrayed and horrified, even become enemies in some cases. So if you're going to go for an evil playthrough, keep that in mind so you're not surprised when the consequences come your way. We recommend you think out your planned party members before you even get started, so you've got a party who are generally into it rather than being repulsed or even combative. But that brings us to the end of the video. I want to remind you guys that there's still more to come for Baldur's Gate 3, like photo mode, crossplay, and more fixes and updates that have been promised. However, as they do remind us, Larian are, quote, going back to our cave to hang the armor on the wall while we focus on bringing you our next project, end quote. So major content updates like these major patches, that's kind of coming to an end. There's a team dedicated to upholding Baldur's Gate 3 and more neat stuff in the future like that photo mode, but things are going to slow down now. So just enjoy your time with patch 7, and hopefully this overview and reminders was useful. I'll be covering more useful stuff to think about for patch 7 in future videos though, like fantastic builds and more. So until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thank you for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.